Hey, can I be honest with you? Most people want to get more stuff done in their day than they should want to get done in their day. Think about that for a second. Most people want to get tons of things done. They make a to-do list every day and it has 20 or 30 things. So is it surprising at all if they get to the end of the day and there's way more things they didn't get done than there are things they did? Is it surprising that that list goes on to the next list for the next day and then they add more, the new list of what they want, and the lists just get bigger and bigger? And so you end up being in this place where it snowballs into this dynamic where you can never get anything done. And the emotional component of getting to the end of the day and having a lot that's still left on your list, I can't tell you how frustrating that can be, how depressing that can be, to feel like now I didn't get this done, so what's the point of making a list for tomorrow because I probably won't get those things done. Most people will tell you that, if you want to get stuff done, you got to make a list. And I'm not against lists, to be clear. I think lists are helpful. It's what you put on the list. I want to talk to you for a second about how you think about what you put on the list that will help you be more productive. And particularly, I want to talk about time management as a way to think about how you're managing your days and managing your execution, because more often than not, we get it wrong. So let's not talk about the list for just a second. Let's just put the list away for just a second and talk about something more important. And that is the roles that you're in. You may be a father, you may be a husband, you may be a son, you may be a daughter, a wife, a mother, you may be an employee, you may be a boss. Think of all the roles you're in. And most of us will find that of all the roles we're in, right, because I'm a cousin and I'm a second cousin, and those are interesting roles, but not really. That at the end of the day, we end up being in a set of roles that is definable. 4, 5, 6. When you're in 5 roles, you can write those roles down. And for each of those roles, you can define a goal. Roles have goals. Now, the goals may be short-term goals, and they may be long-term goals. I often try and tell people to put a month goal, like what are you trying in this role? What are you trying to do for the next 30 days? And then a year goal. Right? If you get really fancy, you can start doing a 3-year goal, but that we can leave that for now. But you think about, for each role, you have a short-term and a long-term goal. Now, immediately what this is going to do is drastically change the way you think about what you're doing in a given day, right? Because now you have a whole bunch of goals in front of you. Most people, I'm sad to say, right? Most people aren't thinking about their goals. They're just thinking about their lists of things to do. And in fact, it's only when you take your goals and your list of things to do and mix them together, it's only when you evaluate them in this context that you can see that, boy, I have some things on my list that I shouldn't be doing. I have things on my list that I don't want to come near now that I'm looking at it, because it's a total waste of my time. It's great for someone else, but I don't have to do it. Most of the time we say yes to things because it makes us feel good. You know what makes you feel even better? Getting those goals accomplished. And to that end, what you need to do is look at your goals and then look at all those tasks and start filtering them in that construct so that you end up with a list that, first, is a lot smaller and second, is a lot more strategic. Most people I know, right, don't do that. And so at the end of the day, they may have gotten a lot of to-dos done. They haven't really thought through, right, where they're going with it. And people will say, how'd you get so much done in a day? Or how did you even get to this place? I knew you then. I knew you 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And now I know you today. And how did you get here, right? You're like, well, it's just consistent focus on goals, consistent focus in my roles, and having a care to that, so that each Sunday night I can look at my next week and I can go, okay, how are these things played out? How are these things lined up? That's one aspect of time management, right? One aspect of getting it right is filtering out all the things you need to say no to simply because they don't align well with your goals. But there's another key aspect, right? Another important facet to how you think about time management. And that is that there are things you're doing simply because you don't trust other people to do it right. You know what I mean? I bet if you look at your list today, there's something in that list and you're saying, well, the reason I have to do this is because if I gave it to someone else, they won't do it right. And let me ask you this question. How's that strategy working for you? Right? Are you taking more and more to yourself because there's more and more people that can't get it right? Or are you getting more and more of those things off your plate? Because if you live in the lie that says, I have to be the one that does it because I'm the only one that knows how to do it right, then you will end up piling more and more on your plate and you won't be handing it out. The reality is that the only way for someone to get better at doing it right for something they've never done before is that you're going to have to give them a shot. It means you'll have to add a fraction of the time it would have taken you to do the work to coach someone. But I have a high commitment, if you know me, in coaching. And it's because it works, and it works so well. I hand something off, and then I spend a fraction of the time that I would take to do it, and sometimes even the equivalent of the same time it would take me to do it, I spend in coaching someone else doing it. But that means that the next time I can hand it off better and spend less time coaching, and the next time I can hand it off and not coach at all, and eventually things get off my plate. I don't know about you, but it's a great feeling to have a network of, whether it's employees or friends or partners, to have a group of people that you can hand things to saying, I think this is better if you do than I do it. I think you'll end up doing it better. And I don't have to be the center of all these things. I don't have to slow everything down. But on top of that, I now have less on my list. So we say no by having roles and goals. That filters things. So we say no that way. The second way is we say no to hoarding activity, right? Hoarding I'm the only one that can do it. I've mentioned this study for years, but IBM now 15 years ago did a study on delegation and came to the result in a corporate setting perspective that if you handed something off and it took up to 10 times as long, it was still worth handing off. That the delegation was worth it in the long run, even if it took someone 9 times longer. I know I get stressed if I hand something and it takes twice as long. Forget it, I'll just do it, it'll be faster. But it's not faster. So the second thing is get some things off your plate and be proactive about coaching so that other people learn to do it so that they're off your plate forever. The third thing, when you lay out your plan, your structure for the day, how much do you have on a given day that's locked in? For my work, I have a day job that I work 9 hours a day. Do I have 9 things? Do I have one thing for every hour put in my schedule? I know some people that do. I know some people that have 18 then. Right? They're like, okay, I got every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes. I remember the first time I got a daily planner, I felt like a big adult. I felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I have a daily planner. And the daily planner had lines at every 15 minutes. And so I felt obliged to try and figure out what to put in each line. Your schedule is what you do with it. And much like if you were designing something, designing a poster or even writing something, you need a lot of white space. You need room to breathe. You need space to think. And so leverage the white space, not just in your design, not just on a page, leverage it in your life. Create space where you do nothing. I take a nap most days, right? Not likely on the weekends. And every now and then I end up having to schedule a call in the middle of my nap time. But for the most part, which by the way is not really great, right? They're like, you seem kind of sluggish. I'm like, yeah, because this is the time I'm normally asleep. But create space. Create morning space, create afternoon space, and fill your day with 3 things, 4 things. In my 8-hour day, I will often have 1 to 2 objectives for that day. 1 to 2, not more. I know I'll get interrupted with phone calls. I know I'll have impromptu meetings, but I will say these are the 1 or 2 things I got to get done. Sometimes it's writing, sometimes it's literally planning with a group of people through something, but it's not 8 things, it's not 10 things. We're jamming too much in. Right? And it doesn't leave you breathing room. It doesn't leave you room to think through and reflect. One of the most important things that I found in terms of getting more done in the same amount of time that everybody else has is that I spend a larger fraction of time reflecting than most people do. I'm looking back to say, did these systems serve me? Did these people serve me? Did these decisions serve me? Did I get what I wanted out of what I did? Here's the brutal fact. The place that you're in today is a result of the actions you've taken and the path that you knew you were headed towards as you started down that path with every decision you made. This is not a surprising shock. Where you're at today is the logical conclusion. If you spend all day long sitting at a computer and suddenly you start getting heavier, hey, you spent all the time at the computer. If you actually get up and work out every day, hey, look, you're fit. No duh. It's not a shock. All of us are at the end result, wherever we find ourselves, at the end result of a series of decisions on the same path that we started on. If it's not serving you, switch paths. But to that end, you have to have the white space, the time to reflect. And then in the reflection, you have to ask, are the things I'm doing, are the structures and products and strategies and principles, are they serving the agenda, the goals that I have? And if they're not, then make a change. Do those 3 things. And I think you will discover you have all the time in the world. You'll have more time than anyone else around you. And you and I both know, right? We all have the same amount of time in a day. Yours will just be less filled, more strategic, and therefore more powerful. Take care.